Thanks, Lindsay. Hey, I will call this meeting to order. It's council meeting Thursday, May the 12th. Land acknowledgement. I want to acknowledge that we are on the unceded lands of the Mi'kmaq. And a record of attendance. Lindsay has that. There's no absent with regrets. It's great that we could all gather tonight. Declarations of conflict. So if anybody wants to declare now, by all means. If you want to declare later when an item comes up, then you're certainly free to do that as well. We good? Okay. Declarations. Okay, approval of the agenda. So the recommended motion that the agenda be approved. Any additions or deletions? Okay, can I have a motion? Councillor Dares, seconded by Councillor Bell. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Okay, approval of minutes. Town Council, April 14th, please. Councillor Cleveland and Deputy Mayor. Any discussion on this one? Okay, all those in favor? Contrary? Motion carried. Committee of the Whole, April 28th. Councillor Cleveland, seconded by Councillor Lesser. Any discussion on this one, folks? Okay, all those in favor? Contrary? Motion carried. And we had a special town council on May the 3rd. Councillor Heather and Councillor Lesser. Any discussion on the special council meeting? Okay, all those in favor? Contrary? Motion carried. So public hearing. Business arising. So we're at 10A and we're at licenses bylaw amendment, and the recommended motion there is that council approve second reading to amend the licenses bylaw, which includes changes to vending on private property and no licenses required for photography. And I have a motion on that one, please. Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Bell. Do we have any discussion? Because Jeff's here for any questions, concerns on that one. I know we've all read it, so okay, we're good for the vote. Okay, all those in favor? Contrary? Motion carried. Okay, and we are at new business. Tender results, 11A. The recommended motion there is that council award the tender for granular materials for the 2022 season to Quality Concrete, Inc., as recommended by the Manager of Public Works. Councillor Lesser, seconded by Councillor Heather. Any discussion on this one? Oh, you're going to have to stop being so difficult. All those in favor? Contrary? Motion carried. And the easy one, the operational budget 2022-23. Excuse me. The recommended motion there is that council accept a budget with revenues in the amount of $18,760,768 and expenses of $18,755,768 for a surplus of a whopping $5,000 for its general operations for the year ended March 31st, 2023. And that'll provide for the following rates. Residential is $169 per 100 of assessment, commercials $431 per 100, resource general $1.69 per 100, and farmland is $216 per acre. Jeff, do we have farmland? We had that discussion before.
If we do, it is very, very little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always think goat behind Walmart, you know, but I don't know what that's designated, but anyway, folks usually ask, do we have farmland? So the garbage collection and processing, The residential rate is now set at 205 per dwelling unit, and that's up to a maximum of 4 dwelling units per building. Others in excess of 4 dwelling units is deemed commercial, and that would be at the owner's expense. Retail and other commercial type operators are deemed commercial, and that is at the owner's expense as well. There's pollution control charges. I won't go through all of those, but from the 5/8 inch to the 8 inch, 3561 to 3286.27. There's an effluent rate of 4.617 per 1,000 imperial gallons. This is of particular note, as it's a change as well. The interest rate of 14% per annum will be charged on delinquent accounts. We had put that down a bit for COVID, but that's back at its regular rate. That council approves a transfer to the capital fund in the amount of 1.925 million. And the CAO will the Chief Administrative Officer will implement the inherent recommendations, administer and control the operating budget, and report to council as appropriate. So I'm looking for a motion and a seconder, and then we'll have some discussion, because there's always great discussion around the budget. Councillor Lesso will make that motion, seconded by Councillor Bell. Okay, so questions, discussion, concerns? Councillor Dayers?
Yeah, merely that I think that it would be nice if the communications officer could get this information out to the public and clearly explain any change in rates and the rationale behind that. I think it was fully explained to us by the CFO, and it's understandable and it's justifiable. But I think it would be nice if we relayed that information to the public and at the very earliest opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And he will do that.
Including, if I may, what that actually equates to as far as a percentage of the raise in any taxes or fees.
Yes, absolutely. And I know our CFO has all that information. He did hand some information to me because I'm doing my monthly salt wire for the Southwest. I'm doing that, and it's going to be focused on the budget. So basically, it'll be explained in there as well, past what our communications officer will do. So more opportunity. I'll do interview probably. CGLS will probably call in the morning, and Saltwire will call as well, just to get some facts. Basically, you know, the rate is going up 2 cents, which equates to $88,000. And I can say in general, like I'm not really great with numbers, but for example, we are asking for another $88,000 through that 2 cents, and insurance alone for the town jumped from 324,000 to 377. So 24, like that's, you know, that's $50,000 there, 55,000. And we can't forget, and this will all be explained as well, you know, the RCMP jumped from 2.4 million to 2.7 million, and that takes up actually 15% of the entire budget for those protective services. You know, so in a nutshell, as Jerry explains to me, you know, 80% of the budget goes for those things that we can't change those things. You know, we can't change that. The province bills us, I think it's $1.3 million for education. You know, we pay some of the, oh gosh, out on Forest Street. I just lost my word. The protective.
PMO.
Corrections, Your Worship.
The corrections, yes. Yeah, corrections, library funding, all those things, you know, there's nothing we can do. Wages, you know, insurance, fuel, you know, fuel and all those costs have just skyrocketed. We don't do less work when you know, I think I'm going to say in my article, because I've started to formulate it, but you know, everybody in every single household is feeling the, you know, the desperation at the fuel pumps. just the fuel pumps alone. That doesn't mean, Nova Scotia Power or their heating bill or any of those things. So it all compounds. But think about the town, our insurance and, fuel and everything. I mean, it's skyrocketed and there's only so much money. And it's important to note that, the province and the feds can run a deficit, but municipal units cannot. So we have to work within our means. And sadly, the means by which we get the funds to carry out the operations of the town is the public purse. And it's tremendously important. And I know I speak for all of council when I say this, that we are very careful. We're very aware of where the funds come from, that everybody is stretched. But, we have to continue to provide safe drinking water and street lights and, all those other things that are simply day-to-day operations, and be able to do that, within the money that's given to us. So we're very careful. And, Wade said it last week at the committee of the whole, we just don't want to put taxes up. So 2 pennies is a good way to get where we need to get. So that was a long way of saying Councillor Bell and then Councillor Lesser.
Yeah, I think you've really encapsulated most of what I wanted to say. So I won't belabor the point. What I would like to point out is just doing back of the envelope math here. I think that $88,000 represents about 0.4% increase in the budget. I think the drivers, we talked about the drivers, but one of the things is that I think proactively we recognized that we had to account for the reality that we probably are going to face increased fuel costs. And so that we factored that into the budget, expecting that probably we're going to need to, we're going to face increased fuel costs and everything else that goes along with it. And it's an attempt to try to be responsible and not come back at the end of the year with a deficit or have to start trimming programs because we are spending money in other directions. So for anyone that is interested, I just wanted to point out that the budget is available online on the website where our agendas and meetings are. So anybody that wants to take a closer look, it's all there and available for anyone to have a look at. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll wait because the Deputy Mayor might have this question. Councillor Lesser.
Yeah, just continuing on the same conversation as Councillor Darrison mentioned, how important it is for the people to realize the increased costs that we're experiencing is the same increased costs that families are, but we're not paying such a small percentage on in our families to do the same thing. So the budget is stretched to fit everything in, and I would encourage people to go back and watch some of the talk that we've had about this, because it's broadcast, and as Councillor Hatfield has said, read the budget and look at it. It's not anything that anybody wants to do is ever raise taxes at all. But the most impressive thing when I joined council was looking back at the amount of years or the years prior and seeing that we've actually dropped our tax rates considerably. And this is a little bit of an increase, but I mean, we had rates much higher than this at one point as well. So, and what we're accomplishing, I think, in town is incredible. For the money we have, and the protective services. I mean, that's something. The cost is going up even for, as I mentioned in the last meeting. The firemen are using those fire trucks to go to fires in all the county or all the different places. But every time they jump in those fire trucks, the cost is higher than it was, and they're watching. They're filling up on Thursday nights when they can to save money as well, and protective services is a huge cost to us. And for a small town, I think we do it really well. As the CAO said, we're one of the few communities that have full-time paid fire service. We have the RCMP police force in town, which are very active. And, for anybody who likes to complain about them, go on the Interceptor and you'll see they're everywhere. You can find out where they are right now if you want. So they seem to be out and doing their job, and it's not a cheap bill, but I think, people would thank us for, or thank them for the work that is being done, and it comes, it does come at a cost. But, it's not like Councillor Cleveland said at the last meeting, nobody wants to see a price increase for anybody, but considering the price of everything else rising, I think this is a small portion. I think we've handled it better than possibly other levels of government have. So that's it.
Yeah, we have, our costs have increased significantly. And, the $88,000 is a small portion of the increase. So our staff has done amazing work with this budget to bring us everything we could, because we just don't want to up the taxes. Go ahead, Deputy.
Thank you. Something that came out during our discussion was this will be about $25 per household on average. So you spread that out over a year, that's about a $20 a month. Although 62% will pay less than that because they are below. So that is 38% will pay more than that. So just something to consider. Also, that's $77 more per commercial rate, which 79% will pay less than. So just something to kind of throw out there so people know when you put it in a long term that way. It kind of doesn't sound as bad. $20 a month for the services that we have for this town, I think are really good. Also, I spoke with Jerry earlier, and this is a 3-cent increase in the last 4 years. So given the price of inflation, the overall cost of everything around, when you look at it in those terms, once again, I think it can be justified. As was said earlier, we have met several times kind of to talk about this. This isn't just a come to the meeting, approve it and go. We have discussions, our staff go back, they look at it, they try to, cut and slash where they can. And I think it's important that, everybody knows that this isn't easy to do. Taxes aren't something we want to raise, as Councillor Cleveland brought up at our last meeting. And, it's just to maintain the level of service that we have to have, this is what we need to do. So also, if I could ask the CAO, as far as in comparison to other towns in Nova Scotia, I believe you said last time we were mid-pack.
We're better now.
Could you speak to that at all, maybe just a little bit?
Thank you, Your Worship. I can speak to it. I went on the province's open data portal just before we came on to this meeting, because the deputy mayor was posted that question in an email. So I can tell you, based on, and this is based on last year's rates, so ours at 2 cents lower than we're proposing, but everyone else's last year's as well. So that's for comparison purposes. I think it's important we use the same year. So 11th lowest of the 25 towns. So in the lower half of tax rates on the residential side, okay? Town of Amherst had the same rate as us. New Glasgow, Truro, and Bridgewater all had higher rates. They are the 4 towns that are larger than Yarmouth. So arguably, in our class of towns, we are at the lowest on the residential tax rate side. And as far as the commercial tax rate goes, of the 25, we are the 18th lowest. So you might turn it around and say we're like the 7th highest. But Truro, Amherst, and New Glasgow, again, towns in our class in terms of size, are all higher than us. And I think there's a message in there, is that towns have an incredible service burden through infrastructure and through service. And the bigger the town gets, obviously, the more the demands become, and the more service that's needed, the more infrastructure that's needed. And the tax rate that we are proposing to set, or you're proposing to set tonight, although it is a slight increase, we are probably at the point that we're undertaxing for the services and the infrastructure that you have. And, that's something that, future councils will have to think about in terms of sustainability. But I think many years ago, town council raised our tax rates significantly. And as has been mentioned, it's been coming down. We've been trying to hit that balance. And I would say at this point, we may be below the optimal point. But in fairness to the residents, we have to make sure that any penny that's added to the tax rate is done so for a very, very good reason.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Thank you. Councillor Cleveland?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to say and reiterate, we've had a ton of discussion on this. And if anyone who's listening who wants to go back to that, it's all there. It's all a matter of public record. But I've always said I'm just in basic nature, I'm not a guy who's a huge fan of taxes, and I'm not a fan of tax increases. At going through this budget is lean. Again, it is, and this has all been said before, but it is a response to some enormous increases in requirements, things like the huge increase in the cost of policing, things like that. And I did want to say, and Jeff just kind of touched on it, but we are a small town. We are the hub of the region. And when you look around to see what we do with the limited funds that we have, we consistently punch above our weight class. And so, in all honesty, I'm pretty proud of this budget. I'm proud of what we do with the little that we have. We make it work, and we've been doing it consistently. And that's not just a reflection of council at all. It's a reflection of our CAO and our CFO and the staff and the work of our public works and the work of our fire department, who does an amazing job. We're very lucky that we have all of those. And so before we go to anything else, and this whole discussion has been one large, justification of this small increase. But in all honesty, I'm very proud of the work that we have done as a town, and we continue to do. We're doing well. And because of that, I'm less worried about this very small increase. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bell?
Yeah, I just wanted to, Your Worship, I just wanted to comment on the CAO's information regarding where we are in the relative tax rate, and just to make the point that the tax rate doesn't mean anything if you don't also look at assessment, because it is the assessment that actually gives you the income from the tax rate. So when you look at those larger communities, not only is their tax rate higher, but they have a much larger assessment base from which to tax people. So on all of those metrics and all of those measures, the town, I think Councillor Cleveland said, is punching above our weight. If you look at our rural partners on either side of us, they have a larger assessment than we do, mostly residential based. But the reality is that, when our assessment increases, the tax rate will go down if we provide the same level of service and the same money. So it's always a balancing act between the rate and how much assessment we have in the community. And maybe times are looking up for us. After a period of very flat assessment where property prices didn't really rise very rapidly, perhaps we're going to see an expansion in the next few years in our assessment base. So I'm banking on positive. Thank you.
I'll bank on positive with you as well. So any further comments, concerns, questions, anything before we take the vote on the budget? Okay, all those in favor? Contrary? Motion carried, and unanimously, I might add. So great job, folks. And I mean, a huge thank you to staff, obviously, but a huge thanks to each council member, because I know that you dug in, you read, you questioned, you know, and it's one thing to take a budget and for our CAO and CFO to have to find those numbers to pay for the services, but council also has to sit down and figure out where do our priorities fit into all of this and what's important to us, and is there a budget that covers our priorities? So I think we're moving along really, really well. So kudos. Okay. So we got through the budget. We have reports. So committee of the whole, that's you, deputy.
Recommended motion that council accept the proposed amendments to the citizen appointment process policy.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Cleveland. Any discussion on that one? Go ahead, Councillor Dayers.
So I guess in the past, I've spoken in regards to the need to refresh these committees from time to time and recruit new members, and that the goal or the way to set those to do that is to probably set limitations on not only terms of office, but the number of times that you can be renominated to the same committee. And so I'm going to I'm conflicted. And the reason I'm conflicted is that it occurs to me recently that there's no one size fits all for these committees. And I serve on a number of committees, and there's some that I can honestly say I believe that, you know, it's time that we mixed it up a little bit and maybe brought in some new membership. However, on several other committees that I'm on, when I look around the table and I reflect on who's there, I think I'll use Communities in Bloom as an example. There's a few members of the Communities in Bloom committee who have been members of that committee since its inception in 2006. And those committee members have the amount of service that they've provided to this community is absolutely outstanding. It's not just remarkable, it's outstanding. And I'll name them. I'll name the Dave Saulos, the David Warners of that committee that have gone above and beyond year after year after year for this town in that committee. And I'm thinking, are we doing ourselves justice if we adopt this policy and we exclude them from future service on that committee? And I really don't believe we are. So even though I'm one of the ones that advocates change, now I'm advocating status quo, because I really, really honestly believe that those gentlemen and others on that committee and other committees that exist within the town, there's times when there's an exception. And they're exceptional people who provide exceptional service and deserve that exception. So that's my rant. And in its present form, I'm unfortunately unable to support the policy as it's written. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Heather.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I'm in the same position as Councillor Dayers is with this policy. Like all the councillors, we sit on many committees, and there are some committees that people could come and go and not affect the output or outcome of that committee without too much negative outcome. But Communities in Bloom is not one of them. And Councillor Dare spoke of, we call them the two Daves and Alvina and Jean Cluley. And it's not just their years of service, it's what they know about what we do. And I don't know how we would replace that. And so I have great concern if this policy was was adopted as it is, as a blanket policy, I don't know what would happen really to Communities in Bloom, you know, for what those individuals do, how we would recruit those people to replace them and have the knowledge base, because I don't have the knowledge base that they have. And I've been on that committee for 10 years or more, and I don't have that. It's one of those things that you either know all about trees and plants or you don't know all about trees and plants. And you know how to put the portfolio together for the community to present to the judges and all that. So there's a knowledge base there that I don't know that that's easily replaceable. So I will not be supporting this policy either as it's written, although I do believe, as Councillor Dares has said, that, you know, we do need change within committees, and I know from sitting on them that some of them, it's easier to do that change than it is with this particular committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor.
I'm always one who's open to change my mind when new information is presented. So the points that Councillor Dares and Councillor Hatfield just had, I think, are good ones. Maybe would it be doing us justice to refer this back to Committee of the Whole and maybe having a better discussion about the changes that maybe we could make, that we could see implemented. So at the end of the day, we do have the best policy, you know, to make sure that, as you said, people like the 2 days, and I'm sure there are other people on other committees that serve us who are also very strong, and, you know, if they have something to offer, it would be awful just to get a policy in place to see these people kind of go away. So maybe it would be good to table it and discuss this at Committee of the Whole, and then that way, you know, we can make this proper changes made to make sure that this the people who want to serve and need to are there doing the best thing for our town.
Okay. I don't disagree. I don't. Go ahead, Belle, and then I'll.
You're muted.
Sorry. I was just going to make a motion to table this motion. Am I able to do that?
You could, but it would bring it back to the next council meeting or a future council meeting. If you want to refer it to Committee of the Whole, then it's a motion to refer to Committee of the Whole.
Okay, well, I would like to make a motion to refer to Committee of the Whole for further review.
Sorry,
Muted.
I was just singing all of your praises and you didn't even hear it. Yeah, I don't disagree. I think we need more discussion. It's funny because I was sitting at a committee recently where we, you know, suggested that you don't have to take everybody just because they sign up. If you're looking for 2 people and only 2 people sign up, you know, some people are of the thought that, well, you have to take them because you can't say no to volunteers. Whereas I think we believe a little bit differently. You have to make sure you have the right people, or you end up trying to change a policy to make sure that a committee is functional. So I think some more really good discussion on this would be good. So is there any other comments before we vote on sending this back to Committee of the Whole? Go ahead, Councillor Cleveland.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, when it comes right down to it, it's writing this out in a certain way is going to be difficult, but I think in some degree what has to be in there, if I may, is the ability for the committees themselves. There's a lot of self-awareness. You know, I personally and the committee of the Mariner Center Management Board has done a lot of changes, and it's good to have the support, for example, of town with those changes. And I think somehow in the writing of this or in the construction of it, there has to be at least some control given to some of those committees. And sometimes that's a scary thing too. It can be, but there has to be things in place that fit those particular committees, whatever committees those may be. And so I think that's kind of a part of it, is the ability to take that into account. Yeah,
It's only scary when you have committee members who don't have the courage to make the changes, right? That's what we're trying to protect.
Indeed.
So you're right. Go ahead, Councillor Lesser. Did you have your hand up? I think it's behind my screen thing.
Yeah, I mean, the intention of this, I think originally was, which I was supporting up until this conversation tonight. I think the point of it was we were trying to get any committees that are stale to have some new light brought into it, and also lose any perception that our committees are like the old boys club, or like people are on it for life and they get to make decisions forever, because that's also, I think, hurt different committees over the years. So I think that the point of it is really important. I think we maybe just missed it a little bit without. I agree 100% with. I mean, I watch, every morning in the summer, I drive down by the horse and see Dave Solos out in the middle of the road planting his plants, and it's, I mean, you can't replace that. He knows, he knows so much about it, and so many others do as well. But I don't think this was being talked about necessarily because of Communities in Bloom. It was some of the other committees that we might need to revisit and bring in more life in. So I think, yeah, I would support Bell's motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Go ahead, Councillor Heather.
I just want, thank you. I just wanted to add that I don't want people to think that Communities in Bloom is not open to new people and new committee members, because that is not true. And in the last few years, we've had some empty seats, and we've gone out and recruited new people, and they're coming on board and learning and are wonderful additions. So we're certainly open to change, but there are some kind of stakeholders in that we really need to have, and so that's what we're looking at. Thanks.
Yeah, and you have changed. I mean, we've watched you, but every change is growth, right? It's not backwards. And I have to say, when I see Dave Solos, and Dave's one of my neighbors, and he lives between Derek and I, but when I see Dave, I don't think Communities in Bloom. I think community volunteer that loves this community. He would just, so it's not a matter of sitting on a committee, right? Any more than the work that the deputy mayor does. He does as a citizen, right? Not as a council member per se. It's just that love for community that we all have. And then we come and sit at the table as council members. So there's not one person on the screen that doesn't do that, every single day in our own capacity. So, okay, so it looks like we're all in agreement to move that to committee of the whole. So there's any more discussion before we take the vote? Okay, all those in favor? Contrary? Motion carried. And I'll say it, probably already said it, but another excellent example of the fact that this council can just chuck it all on the table. And I say it every time, there's nothing more important than information to change minds and get us to the right decision. So Councillor Dares and Hatfield, thanks for bringing that up. All right, Deputy Mayor.
CAO, sorry.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to comment as well that this discussion kind of exemplifies why the committee of the whole system is so important, right? You consider your decisions, you telegraph your punches, you give it some second thought, and sometimes it changes your decision. So congratulations to you folks for good discussion, and ultimately I think it's going to be a good decision. I
agree. It's funny, I was on last Friday for three and a half hours. Gordon McIntosh did it was on civility basically, but for there was 110 municipal leaders from across the country signed up. And one of the things he was, adamant about was you've got to have that committee of the whole, and everybody doesn't. You've got to have committee of the whole in place to get you to those right decisions. So I'm glad we're on that right track. So back to you there, Deputy.
Perfect. This is one I'm really proud of and glad to see moving forward. I recommend a motion that council approve the design at Elma Square for the Jim McLeod Memorial.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Cleveland. Any discussion? So we did meet. I say we met. I mean, I missed the meeting, but the family was at Alma Square with the CAO and our, was Todd there? So our park supervisor and our engineer. And we think we found a spot for the monument that's fitting. That's fitting. So go ahead, Councillor Lesser.
Yeah, I know I posted on Facebook, I think in the fall, maybe, or might have even been last spring, trying to figure out the names of all of our streets, and somehow I can't find my post because I think the answers for every street was there, but I don't remember. The purpose of or the name of Alma Street, do we know where that originated? Somebody mentioned it today. They love the idea of the Jim McLeod Square, but they just wanted to know if we knew where Alma Square or Alma Street came from, and I couldn't find my post, but just curious if anybody might know that. And it's fine if you don't, we can just move on.
No, I don't remember. I mean, a historian might know.
That's
But-
Dave Solos.
Thanks,
I was
Alma.
gonna say, that's just what I was gonna say. Dave Solos would probably know, but you know, thankfully we're keeping Alma Street and just changing the square name, which is, you know, you get the best of both worlds. But if we can find that, Councillor, we'll go ahead, Councillor Dares.
Yeah, actually, I don't believe I think the Alma Square was by default because it was on Alma Street. I don't think it was an official designation. And secondly, I had asked of the family because Jim's mom's name was Alma. I wanted to make sure there was no connection there, and I was assured that there wasn't. So I think we're in the clear here on this one.
I would agree. Thank you for that. Okay. So it's moved by the deputy. Who seconded that? Oh, Councillor Cleveland. Okay. All those in favor? Contrary? Motion carried. Go ahead, deputy.
A recommended motion that council approve first reading to amend the noise bylaw to include A ban the use of consumer fireworks within the town of Yarmouth except on recognized religious holidays, Canada Day, New Year's Eve, Natal Day, the Seafest Parade of Lights, and extend the authority to the CAO to provide a written exemption for similar events, and B, require signage be displayed at retail displays of fireworks informing consumers of the ban.
Staff. I have a seconder, please. Okay, Councillor Hatfield, Heather. Any discussion on this one? Okay, all those in favor? Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you, deputy.
Recommended motion that council approve the composition for the Deer Management Strategy Working Group.
Seconded by Councillor Heather Hatfield. Any discussion on that one? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Bell.
I just wanted to affirm that we're approving the composition of the Deer Management Committee, and that the committees, we're following the process of the Truro experience. Is that right?
That's essentially correct. We've adopted the same terms of reference as their Deer Management Working Group had, with the purpose of developing a strategy and implementing it. And we're following almost exactly the committee composition that they used.
Okay. So I just wanted to reiterate that it's the process that we are following, not the result.
That's
That
right.
we will be guided by our own experience and the experience of our community in making a decision. So we're not agreeing to the result yet. We're agreeing to the process.
That's right, and that's an important distinction for a couple of reasons. Truro examined something like a dozen, maybe 16 different options, and they did so, well, maybe a couple of years ago. I think it's important for our working group to review that list of options and perhaps other options that may have emerged in other jurisdictions, and make an informed decision in terms of recommendations that they would make back to council in terms of what is it we should do. The other thing, and it's very important that we should do that Truro has done and it continues to do, is monitor the population. Try to understand what the actual population is so that we can monitor what the impact of any intervention is on the deer population. So this is a long-term project to manage wildlife in the town, but I think Truro has taken a very methodical and appropriate approach to it, and we're just simply trying to follow their lead and bring that learning to Yarmouth.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Dares.
Thank you. And thank you for that point, Councillor Hatfield. After this kind of came out on social media, a lot of people thought that basically we adopted the call, we're good to go, this is what we're doing. But bringing up the point that, no, Truro did a lot of kind of back work, that we were presented by their CAO. We're very appreciative of that. As our CAO just said, there was 12 to 16 different options that will be examined by, the committee that we choose, and we'll see what fits best for our area. So just so the public knows, there's been no decision made yet. That will be made by the committee. This work will be done. We're just laying the framework down so the committee can be made and move forward from there. So no calls on the way, not doing the same thing. Just thankful to Truro, who did some back work, and we can hit the ground running, but no decisions made. And if you would like to be a part of that and, maybe do a little more than the social media type in some time, there will be some a chance for committee or for community members to join, and very happy to have public input during that whole process. So thank you.
Perfect. Councillor Dares.
Yeah, I just want to say that, public participation or public consultation will be an important part of the process moving forward, and nothing's going to happen overnight. I look up my window on a regular basis in the evenings and can count between 13 and 15 deer in my yard most evenings. And we're about 2 to 3 weeks away from the birthing season. So I expect that that number to rise in the near future. But certainly no decisions have been made. And as I've expressed in the past, my interest is in a humane solution to this problem. And it is a problem that has to be addressed, but it'll be certainly, I think, my interest is in the most humane fashion possible. I want to reassure the public of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else before we vote on that motion? Okay, all those in favor? Contrary? Motion carried. Thank you, Deputy. Okay, Citizen Advisory Committees, Planning Advisory, Councillor Cleveland, you're on.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have two tonight. First is recommended motion that Council approve first reading to a text amendment to the MPS and LUB to create enabling policies that would allow commercial vans larger than 6,804 kilograms, that's 15,000 pounds, to be permitted on residentially zoned lots by development agreement, and that Council approve first reading to a site-specific development agreement to allow one commercial van of up to 8,618 kilograms, that's 19,000 pounds, to be parked at 170 Pleasant Street.
Okay, can I have a second? Councillor Dares? Okay. Any discussion on this one? Questions? Councillor Dares?
Yes, and I hope that everybody caught the fact that that Councillor Cleveland emphasized and stressed upon the fact that this is by development agreement. So this is not a blanket approval for everybody to go out and buy a van and park it in their yard. This is by development agreement. I think it's a nice compromise to a problem that existed and that enables somebody to maintain their business while not impacting negatively on the neighborhood. So I really think that we found a nice way to address this without causing any problems in the future. And so I will be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor? Contrary? Motion carried.
Thank you, Your Worship. One more. That council approve first reading to amend the MPS and LUB to change the permitted uses section listed under the O1 zone to allow existing institutional uses, regardless of whether they are contained within an existing building, and amend the definition of existing to exempt institutional uses which are located within the O1 zone. And specifically, we're talking about the property where the food bank is.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor. Can I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor? Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Contrary? Great, motion carried. Thank you for that, Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship.
So questions for committee chair? Oh, go ahead, CAO.
No, I just was going to mention that both of those items will be on the next agenda for a public hearing. So if members of the public want to come forward to the next meeting, it may be a virtual meeting, and so we'll be advertising the process for people to join the meeting and maybe provide their perspective on it, on both of those items.
Thank you for that. Okay, so questions for committee chairs. Is there anything? Go ahead, Councillor Cleveland.
I don't have a question for committee chair, but I do have just a little bit of information. I just wanted to remind everyone who may be watching, and to you all as well, that of course tomorrow, Friday the 13th, is our first small cruise ship is coming to the harbor. The weather is good. Fingers crossed that it stays that way. And I know that Yarmouth has a history of being welcoming. There's some planned tours that are going to happen. They're going to be exploring the downtown, and we're very excited to see this reopening of tourism in Yarmouth and in the Yarmouth and Acadian Shores area. It's a very exciting thing.
It is very exciting, and in a week we get the big boat. I know, because I've been doing more interviews. I actually did a really nice long interview with some Maine media this afternoon, and all the local media in the province is calling, and how do we feel about that? Are we ready? What kind of work did we have to do to get ready? Those types of things. But in general, it's just such a relief. It's a relief mixed with excitement. So it's what we do best, hospitality. So we're excited about that. Councillor Dares and then Councillor Lesser.
Yeah, I'm just going to put in a shameful plug for CIB, Communities in Bloom, because just over a week ago, those committee members volunteered for the evening to go down and clean up the downtown and the waterfront to make sure that it was presentable for the first guests that arrive.
Yeah. And that all matters a lot. Councillor Lesser.
The question, it's not really for a committee chair, but I'm curious if anybody knows what happened to the grass in between our sidewalks and street. Like, it looks like it was all scraped off and then astroturfed. Is that, anybody know have you seen that?
Where?
I think it's like Stars Road. There's some like down by the Milton Irving. It's that section of dirt in between, and it looked like I thought it was maybe the snowplows in the winter had taken it off, but then I see this morning it had AstroTurf put on it.
That's weird.
Well, on Pleasant Street, on lower southern Pleasant Street, that happened. It was all dug off, and today wasn't AstroTurf, but it was sprayed.
Yes,
sprayed with seed.
Okay, so I probably know what's going on here. So some of our sidewalks, the grass median area over the years with sand being put on the sidewalk, then getting, kind of pushed off to the side, and maybe other causes, the grass median has become quite a bit higher than the sidewalk, and those sidewalks tend to pond water because it can't run off. It's kind of like the sidewalk becomes a valley. So I think in some cases that our public works and perhaps grounds people are picking particular spots like that and re-leveling the level of the soil so that the drainage can happen. And so if it is sprayed with the grass seed, the hydroseeded, then the grass will come back. But the sidewalk in terms of drainage will function better. So it's a little less attractive for a little while, but it'll come back.
I think it's actually going to look better when it's done, because you're right, they were in places mounted or mounded up, I guess. I was just curious more than anything. And I said AstroTurf and I meant hydroseed. But the other thing I wanted to comment on about the ferry is how nice, like I call them the Mark canopies, because I think Mark saved us a ton of money on getting those canopies put in place. But how nice it looks to see the Ferry of Maine written on there and the cat symbol and stuff. It's just like it kind of finalized the whole project, and it was nice to go down last week and see that on.
Yeah, I agree. It looks great down there. Okay, any more? I have a question. It's not to a committee person, but it's to our CAO. Not for details, because that's obviously a contracting camera, but where are we with the fire contract? Because we sent
Yes, Your Worship. So council sent a letter, council's direction, you sent a letter to Warden Cunningham to request that the process be restarted. And my understanding, well, I know for a fact that the solicitor was contacted by the solicitor engaged by the municipality of Yarmouth to set a date for actual sit down or virtual negotiation. Not sure how that will happen. Perhaps Greg can speak to maybe when that was.
Yeah, it was a couple weeks ago, and they had suggested some dates in late April, but there was some miscommunication to me getting back to him and him getting back to me, so there weren't any dates set. I've asked him just recently for suggest some new dates, so I should hopefully hear something shortly on that.
okay, yeah, just keep us updated on the dates, and I mean, I'll just say the sooner the better, because it's for a lot of reasons. Most of which we know, right? Okay, thanks for that. Anyone else? We're good? Okay. There weren't any additions. Approval of invoices, please. Okay, Councillor, everybody? We'll go with Councillor Lesser and Councillor Hatfield. All right, all those in favor? Contrary? Motion carried. And the date of the next meeting is June the 9th. Looking for a motion to go in camera. Thanks.
Your Worship.
Oh, go ahead, CAO.
Your Worship, we do have a short water utility agenda tonight, so perhaps we can save the in-camera items until the end of the water utility meeting, if that's okay.
Absolutely. So can we continue recording, or should we stop and start?
I'll take Lindsay's advice on that.
Can we stop and start, please?
Yes, absolutely.
So motion to adjourn here, I guess.
Yeah, motion to adjourn, please. Okay, Councillor Lesser and Councillor Dares. All those in favor? Contrary? Motion carried. Okay, so we are adjourned, and Lindsay will turn off the tape and then we'll start again.